What would you do if, just a day before your engagement, your family insisted that you cancel it to throw a party for your sister's promotion instead? And when you refused, they snapped, saying, "Fine then, go and have your engagement on your own." That's exactly what happened to me. I walked away, not knowing that the next day, a surprise was waiting for them at the venue. Let's dive into this dramatic and surprising story. Sometimes, one small thing can change everything, and that's exactly what happened to me, Hope, just 3 weeks before my engagement party. I'm 30, and I was thrilled about marrying Liam, my boyfriend of 5 years. We'd been planning this party for months, and everything was going perfectly. But then, out of nowhere, my mom called. "Hope, cancel the engagement party," she demanded over the phone. I almost dropped my phone in shock. "What, Mom? Are you serious?" I asked, hoping it was a joke. "No joke. Giselle just got promoted and we're celebrating on your engagement day," she replied. Giselle, my younger sister by 4 years, has always been the favorite in my family, but this was a whole new level of madness. "Mom, come on, I've been planning this for so long. I'm not canceling just because Giselle got a promotion at work," I said, struggling to keep my voice steady. "Don't be selfish, Hope. This is a big deal for your sister. Same guests, different party, just reschedule," she insisted. I could feel the anger rising inside me. "No way, Mom. This is my engagement we're talking about. I'm not canceling," I said firmly, my voice shaking with frustration. She started yelling, her voice so high-pitched it hurt my ears. I didn't even bother listening anymore. I just hung up the phone. As I sat there, staring at my phone, memories from my childhood came rushing back. It was always like this: Giselle first, me second. I thought about my 18th birthday, a day my parents completely forgot until Grandma called to wish me a happy birthday. My parents scrambled to throw together a half-hearted celebration with a sad grocery store cake and a gift card. It was pathetic, especially when compared to the lavish 5-day party they had thrown for Giselle's 15th just a few months earlier. That's when Liam walked in. He took one look at my face and immediately knew something was wrong. "Hope? What's going on?" he asked, sitting down beside me. I told him everything: the call from my mom, her demands, and all the painful memories that came flooding back. Liam listened quietly, his expression growing more upset with every word I spoke. "That's ridiculous," he said when I finished. "We're not canceling anything." I nodded, feeling a wave of gratitude for his support. "I know, but why can't they ever put me first just once?" I asked, my voice thick with frustration. "Because they're clueless," Liam said firmly. "But I put you first, always." I looked up at him, and despite everything, I managed a small smile. "I know. That's why I'm marrying you, silly." We spent the rest of the night making sure everything was set for the party, checking off our plans, and making sure the details were perfect. As I drifted off to sleep, I pushed thoughts of my family out of my mind. This was my time, my moment, and I wasn't going to let them ruin it. The next morning, I woke up with a renewed sense of purpose, determined to forget about my mom's crazy call and focus on the party. There were a million things to do: send invites, finalize decorations, you name it. Then my phone buzzed. It was my cousin Julie. "Hey, Hope, everything okay with you and Liam? Heard you guys split up," she texted. I stared at my phone, totally confused. Where did she get that idea? I quickly typed back, "What? No way, we're fine. Who told you that?" Julie's reply came quickly. "Weird. Aunt Olivia said your mom told her the engagement was off." My stomach dropped like a stone. I called Julie right away. "What's going on?" I asked as soon as she picked up. "I don't know, Hope. Aunt Olivia called last night and said your mom told her you and Liam had this huge fight and called everything off. She said we should all go to Giselle's promotion party instead." It felt like I'd been punched in the gut. "Julie, that's all lies. We're still engaged, and the party's still on. Mom wanted me to cancel for Giselle's thing, but I said no way." There was a pause. "Oh no, Hope. I'm so sorry. I had no idea." I spent the next hour on the phone with Julie trying to figure out what happened. Turns out my mom had gone behind my back and called every single relative on the guest list, spinning a wild story about Liam and me breaking up and redirecting them all to Giselle's promotion party. I took a deep breath, trying to calm down. I'm going to fix this mess. Can you help spread the word that the engagement is still on? I asked. Of course, Julie replied without hesitation. I'll start calling people right now. After hanging up, I just sat on my couch, trying to wrap my head around it all. My own mother had tried to sabotage my engagement party. It was almost too crazy to believe. Liam found me there an hour later when he got home from work. One look at my face, and he knew something was wrong. I told Liam everything about Mom's calls, the lies, and how she redirected everyone to Giselle's party. With each word, I could see the anger growing in his eyes. That's it, he said when I finished. We're cutting them off. All of them. Your parents, Giselle, the whole bunch. I knew he was right, but the idea of cutting off my family scared me. Even though they treated me poorly, they were still my family. Let's focus on fixing this first, I said. We need to let everyone know the engagement is still on. Liam nodded, determined. Okay, where do we start? We spent the rest of the night doing damage control, sending emails, making calls, and posting on social media. I wrote a long message explaining everything and sent it to everyone on our guest list. It was exhausting and humiliating having to explain over and over that no, Liam and I hadn't broken up, and yes, the engagement party was still happening. By the time we finished, it was way past midnight. My voice was hoarse from all the talking, and my eyes burned from staring at screens. We did it, Liam said, pulling me into a hug. It's going to be okay. I wanted to believe him, but I couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. Mom's betrayal had opened up old wounds. All the times I'd been overlooked, all the times Giselle had been the favorite, it all came rushing back. The next day, I decided to visit Aunt Nicole. She's my dad's sister and has always been pretty nice to me. I figured I'd invite her to the engagement party in person and clear up any confusion. When I got to her place, I heard voices coming from the living room. I was about to call out a greeting when I overheard something that made me stop in my tracks. I can't believe Hope would do such a thing, Aunt Nicole was saying, canceling her own engagement party just to spite her sister. So childish. My heart sank. It was another lie, spread by my own family to cover up the first one. I was about to burst in and set the record straight when I heard another voice chime in. I know, right? Poor Giselle must be devastated after all that hard work to get promoted, and now Hope is trying to steal her thunder. I recognized that voice. It was my cousin Maria. I always thought we were close, but there she was, gossiping about me behind my back. I couldn't take it anymore. I stepped into the room and asked, "Is that really what you think of me?" Both women jumped like they'd seen a ghost. Aunt Nicole was the first to recover, quickly putting on a fake smile. "Hope, sweetie, we didn't hear you come in." "Obviously," I replied, my voice cold. "I came to invite you to my engagement party, but it seems like you've already made up your minds about me." Maria at least had the decency to look embarrassed. "Hope, we didn't mean—" "Save it," I cut her off. "I want to know exactly what Mom told you." For the next hour, I listened as they revealed everything about Mom's twisted story. According to her, I had a tantrum when I heard about Giselle's promotion and demanded she reschedule her celebration. When Giselle refused, I supposedly canceled my own engagement party out of spite, saying I'd rather not get married at all than share the spotlight. It was just another lie for my family. By the time they finished, I was trembling with anger. "None of that is true," I said, my voice shaking. "Mom called me and demanded I cancel my engagement party for Giselle's celebration. I said no, and now she's spreading lies to sabotage me." I told them everything, the forgotten birthdays, the constant comparisons, years of feeling like I was never good enough. By the time I finished, both women were in tears. "Oh, Hope," Aunt Nicole said, reaching for my hand. "We had no idea. We should have known better than to believe such crazy stories." I took a deep breath, trying to calm down. Look, I appreciate the apology, but right now I need your help. The engagement party is still on, and I need you to spread the word. Can you do that? They both nodded eagerly, relieved to have a chance to make things right. As I left Aunt Nicole's house, I felt all mixed up, angry at Mom's betrayal, hurt that my family so easily believed the worst about me, but also a bit hopeful. At least some of the truth was out now. The big day arrived, and I was a bundle of nerves. As Liam and I walked up to the hall, I held my breath as we pushed open the doors, bracing myself for whatever mess we might find inside. But holy cow, I couldn't believe my eyes. The place was buzzing with people. Smiling faces turned to greet us, and a warm, fuzzy feeling washed over me. The room was packed with relatives, not just the ones we had managed to reach the day before, but faces I hadn't seen in ages. "I can't believe you all came," I said, my voice choked up. Uncle Paul, my dad's brother, came up and gave Liam a hearty slap on the back. "Of course we came. Did you really think we'd miss this? I've got to say, those rumors about your canceled engagement spread like wildfire, but it looks like they backfired big time." Someone laughed. I laughed, feeling lighter than I had in weeks. I guess they did. As Liam and I made our way through the crowd, soaking up all the congratulations and well wishes, I couldn't help but notice that Mom, Dad, and Giselle were nowhere to be seen. No texts, no emails, not even a reluctant congratulations. But surprisingly, their absence felt more like a relief than a disappointment. Instead, I found myself drawn to Liam's parents, who were beaming at us with genuine pride and love. His mom hugged me tight and whispered, "We're so proud of you, Hope. You're already part of our family." The party was in full swing when suddenly there was a commotion near the dance floor. I couldn't believe my eyes. There was my 83-year-old grandma in the middle, showing off what she called an incendiary dance from her youth. "Come on, you young ones," she called out, her eyes twinkling mischievously. "Let me show you how we used to dance back in my day." The crowd went wild as Grandma twirled and swayed, moving surprisingly well for her age. Soon others joined in, and the dance floor turned into an amazing multi-generational dance-off. As I mingled with the guests, I couldn't help but overhear bits of gossip about all the family drama leading up to today. "Can you believe what Hope's mother tried to do?" I heard Cousin Maria say to another relative. "She tried to cancel her own daughter's engagement party for her other daughter's work thing? It's nuts." "I know," the other voice replied. "Poor Hope has always gotten the short end of the stick in that family. I'm glad she's finally standing up for herself." Instead of feeling embarrassed or upset by these conversations, I felt validated. For once, my relatives were seeing the truth about my family dynamics, and they were on my side. As the night went on, I found myself feeling truly happy and celebrated, maybe for the first time ever. The absence of my immediate family, which I had been so worried about, instead felt like a huge weight had been lifted off my shoulders. The day after our amazing engagement party, Liam and I were relaxing on the couch, reliving the awesome moments from the night before, when my phone rang. My stomach flipped when I saw it was Mom calling. Against my better judgment, I answered the call. "Hello? You ungrateful, nasty girl." Mom's voice screeched through the phone. "How dare you?" I held the phone away from my ear. Her angry rant was loud even from a distance. Liam looked at me concerned, but I shook my head, signaling that I'd handle it. "Mom, what? Don't you mom me?" She cut me off. "You've humiliated your sister." Only 5 people showed up to her party, and they were just those nosy old aunts who go to anything. I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "I'm sorry you're disappointed, but..." "Disappointed? Giselle is crushed. She cried all night. This was supposed to be her moment, and you ruined it with your selfishness." I felt my patience slipping. "Mom, I've been planning my engagement party for months. Giselle's promotion party was a last-minute thing, and she knew it clashed with my engagement." "That's no excuse. Family comes first, Hope, but clearly you don't understand that. Before I could respond, she hung up on me. Immediately after the call, my phone buzzed with a text from Giselle. Hope, you're happy. You've ruined everything. I'll make you pay for this humiliation. I showed the message to Liam, who frowned. She can't be serious. The next 3 weeks were quiet, and I started to think maybe the storm had passed. But then, one afternoon, there was an unexpected knock at our door. I opened it to find Liam's parents standing there, looking worried. Mr. and Mrs. Adams, what a surprise. Is everything okay? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. They exchanged a glance before Mrs. Adams spoke. Hope, dear, can we come in? We need to talk to you about something. My heart sank as I led them into the living room. Once we were all seated, Mr. Adams cleared his throat. Hope, we've heard some troubling rumors. There's been talk that you've been cheating on Liam. I felt like I'd been slapped. What? That's ridiculous. I would never. We know, dear, Mrs. Adams interrupted gently. We've known you for years. We don't believe it for a second. Relief washed over me, quickly followed by anger as I realized where these rumors likely came from. It's my sister, I said, my voice shaking a bit. She threatened to get back at me for ruining her promotion party. She must be spreading these lies. Mr. Adams nodded grimly. We figured as much. We wanted to come to you directly rather than let these rumors spread. As they left, they promised to help squash any rumors they heard. I felt all mixed up inside. I was touched by the Adams' support and trust in me. But I was also furious at Giselle. How could she sink so low? A few days after the drama with Liam's parents, I got a call from Grandma. Her voice, usually so cheery, sounded worried. Hope, sweetie, she started. I've heard about all this mess with your parents and Giselle. Don't you think it's time to bury the hatchet? I sighed, feeling the weight of her expectations. Grandma, it's not that easy. They've really hurt me. I know, honey, but they're family. Surely there's a way to patch things up. I could hear the plea in her voice, and it tugged at my heartstrings. Grandma had always been there for me, even when the rest of my family wasn't. I hated disappointing her. What do you think I should do? I asked, already dreading the answer. Why don't you try reaching out? Make a peace offering. Show them you're willing to mend fences. I closed my eyes, torn between my love for Grandma and my need to protect myself. After a long moment, I sighed. Okay, Grandma, I'll try. For you. That evening, I stood on my parents' doorstep, heart pounding. As soon as I stepped inside, I knew this wasn't going to go well. Giselle was there, her face full of anger. So, she spat, you think you can just waltz in here and throw me a pity party? That's not what I started, but she cut me off. I don't need your handouts, Hope. Do you think that makes up for what you did? I should have had my party on your day, then people would have actually shown up. I stared at her, shocked by the bitterness in her voice. Giselle, I'm trying to make things right. Make things right? She screeched. You ruined everything. As usual, it's all about you. I looked to my parents, hoping for some support, but they just stood there nodding along with Giselle. She's right, Hope, Mom said. You've always been so selfish. I felt something snap inside me. Without a word, I turned and walked out, ignoring their calls behind me. Later, I visited my grandma again. She greeted me with a hopeful smile. How did it go, dear? Instead of answering, I pulled out my phone. Grandma, I think you need to hear this. Her eyes widened in surprise, but she nodded. I hit play, and Giselle's furious voice filled the room. As the recording played, I watched Grandma's face change from hope to shock, then to deep disappointment. When it finished, there was a long silence. Then, to my surprise, Grandma reached out and took my hand. Oh, Hope, she said, her voice thick with emotion. I'm so sorry. I had no idea it was this bad. I owe you an apology. Grandma, I said. I shouldn't have pushed you to reconcile. I felt tears well up in my eyes. It's okay, Grandma. You didn't know. She shook her head. No, it's not okay. I should have believed you from the start. I just wanted so badly for our family to be whole. We sat in silence for a while, both thinking about what had happened. Finally, Grandma spoke again. Hope, dear, I want you to know something. Family isn't just about blood. It's about love, respect, and support. And from what I've seen and heard, Liam and his family give you that. Don't let anyone make you feel guilty for choosing your own happiness. The morning after my heart-to-heart with Grandma, I woke up to my phone buzzing like crazy. It was a flood of angry texts from my parents. My heart sank as I read them, realizing Grandma must have told them about the recording. How dare you record our private conversations, Mom's message screamed. You're nothing but a sneaky, ungrateful snitch. Dad's message was just as bad. I can't believe you'd stoop so low as to secretly record us and then play it for your grandmother. You've betrayed this family for the last time. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. Even with proof of their behavior, they still managed to make me the bad guy. This was the last straw. I was done with my toxic family. In the weeks that followed, I tried to focus on work and my life with Liam, but Giselle had other plans. Her spitefulness went into overdrive as she started harassing me. It began with whispers at work. Colleagues would go silent when I walked into a room, only to start whispering again as soon as I left. I soon found out Giselle had been spreading nasty rumors about me, from calling me incompetent to telling outright lies about my personal life. Then came the anonymous messages on social media. Hateful comments popped up on my posts, each one nastier than the last. I couldn't prove it was Giselle, but the tone and content left little doubt in my mind. But Giselle's cruelty reached a new low when she tried to contact Liam. One evening, he came home looking troubled. Hope, I got a weird call today, he said. It was Giselle. She tried to tell me you were cheating on me. I felt the blood drain from my face. What? Liam? You know that's not true. He quickly reassured me. Of course I know that. I shut her down right away. But Hope, this is getting out of hand. I nodded, feeling a mix of anger and exhaustion. I know. I just don't know how to make it stop. I didn't have to do much. Giselle's obsession with revenge started to backfire on her. She became so focused on trying to make my life miserable that her work began to suffer. She spent more and more time plotting against me, and her coworkers noticed. They saw her constantly whispering and spending long stretches on her phone instead of doing her job. It wasn't long before her bosses noticed too. I heard through the office grapevine that Giselle received an official warning for her poor performance, but even that didn't seem to slow her down. Then, about a month into her harassment campaign, the news broke. Giselle had been demoted. The irony was clear to everyone. The promotion she had been so desperate to celebrate, the one that had started this whole mess, was now taken away. After the drama with Giselle finally settled down, I threw myself into wedding planning like it was my full-time job. We finally picked a beautiful outdoor venue, a fairy tale garden with a charming gazebo where we'd say, I do. As we stood there, imagining our big day, Liam gave my hand a gentle squeeze. Are you happy? He asked softly. I looked up at him, warmth flooding my chest. Happier than I've ever been, I replied, my voice steady and full of truth. And I truly meant it. With the venue set, we moved on to choosing our wedding party. I asked my closest friends, the ones who had stuck by me through all the craziness, to be my bridesmaids. They all said yes, and the excitement bubbled up inside me. Then came the guest list. I sat at our dining table, carefully addressing envelopes to all the relatives and friends who had supported us in the months leading up to the wedding. As I wrote each name, I felt a profound sense of gratitude for these people who had shown me what real family was all about. But as I reached the bottom of the list, I paused. 3 names were left unwritten: Mom, Dad, and Giselle. I stared at those blank spaces, a swirl of conflicting emotions rising inside me. Liam noticed me sitting there, frozen in thought. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice gentle as he placed a comforting hand on my shoulder. I looked up at him, tears welling in my eyes. "I don't think I can invite them, Liam. Not after everything that's happened." He nodded, understanding without needing an explanation. "It's your call, Hope. Whatever you decide, I've got your back." I took a deep breath, steadying myself. "No," I said, my voice stronger than I expected. "They don't deserve to be there. This day is about celebrating love and support, and that's not something they've shown me." As I made that decision, a sense of relief washed over me. This wedding was about starting a new chapter, surrounded by people who truly cared about us, and with Liam by my side, I knew I was making the right choice. Saying those words felt like a huge weight had been lifted from my shoulders. It was a bittersweet moment, realizing that cutting ties with my toxic family was the right decision for my future. There was sadness, yes, but it was mixed with an overwhelming sense of relief. The weeks flew by, and before I knew it, our wedding day had arrived. Standing in front of the mirror in my bridal suite, adjusting my veil, I was suddenly filled with a peace I hadn't felt in years. As I walked down the aisle toward Liam, I saw the faces of the people who had supported us. Liam's parents were beaming with pride, my grandma dabbed at her eyes with a hanky, and our friends and relatives who had stood by us despite all the family drama smiled warmly. These were my people, the ones who had shown me what real love and support looked like. When I reached Liam, he took my hands in his eyes shining with love. As we said our vows, a deep sense of rightness settled over me. This was where I belonged. At the reception, surrounded by laughter and joy, I had a big realization. My engagement party all those months ago wasn't just about celebrating our upcoming marriage. It had marked the beginning of my new life. A life where I wasn't an outsider anymore, but the creator of my own happiness. As Liam and I swayed to our first dance as husband and wife, I rested my head on his shoulder, feeling completely at peace. The journey had been tough, no doubt, but it had led me here, to a place of strength, wisdom, and genuine happiness. "I love you," Liam whispered in my ear. "I love you too," I replied, my heart swelling with emotion. In that moment, I knew that whatever life threw our way, we'd face it together. And for the first time in my life, I was excited about the future, not scared of it. This was my fresh start, and I was ready to dive in headfirst with Liam by my side. As Hope decided to stand up for her happiness and do what was right, she never imagined that these actions would lead to harsh confrontations with her family. In the end, all the lies and betrayal came to light, but one key decision would shape her future. Hope's story is a powerful lesson about strength and the ability to stand up for yourself when the people around you don't value you. When family members are unfair, biased, or exploitative, it's important not to continue enduring it, but instead to stand up and love yourself. Hope chose to protect her engagement, not allowing anyone to ruin the joy that she rightfully deserved. The lesson here is that setting boundaries is essential, especially in family relationships where you feel unappreciated. Hope chose peace and happiness for herself, even though it meant cutting ties with toxic family members. Happiness doesn't come from seeking acceptance from family, but from the understanding and love you have for yourself. What do you think about Hope's decision? If you were in her shoes, what would you have done in this situation? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe to keep following these inspiring stories.
The call came during my mother's funeral. I was standing in front of her casket, touching the polished wood one last time, when my phone vibrated against my hip. The screen lit up with Debbie Brooks, my mother-in-law's impeccable timing, as always. I let it go to voicemail, twice. On the third call, my hands trembled as I stepped away from the mourners and into the funeral home's empty hallway. "Ayla, dear, I've been trying to reach you." Debbie's voice dripped with artificial sweetness. "We're having a family gathering next Saturday. I expect you and Greg to be there." The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as I processed her words. Debbie, I'm at my mother's funeral right now. Oh, that's today? A pause. Well, I'm sorry for your loss, dear, but life goes on. Saturday is very important. The whole family will be there, and I'm announcing something special. My free hand curled into a fist. Through the doorway, I could see my brother Jason watching me, concern etched on his face. The same expression he wore when we found Mom. I don't think I can. Nonsense, Debbie cut in. Your mother wouldn't want you wallowing in grief. Besides, Greg needs you there. You do want to support your husband, don't you? The manipulation was so blatant, it would have been funny if it wasn't so cruel. I pressed my forehead against the cool wall, remembering Mom's last words to me about standing up for myself. Fat lot of good that advice did when facing Hurricane Debbie. I'll have to check with Greg, I managed. He's already confirmed. I spoke to him this morning. Of course she had. My husband, caught between his mother's iron will and my grief, probably folded like a cheap lawn chair. I loved Greg, but his spine turned to jelly whenever Debbie applied pressure. I'll think about it, I said, knowing it would infuriate her. Ayla, her voice hardened, this isn't a request. I've already told everyone you'll be there. Don't embarrass the family by making excuses. The family. Her family. Never mind that I'd just lost the only blood relative who'd truly understood me, besides Jason. Never mind that Mom's body wasn't even in the ground yet. I have to go, I said. They're waiting for me. Saturday at 6. Wear something appropriate, not black. The line went dead before I could respond. I stared at the phone, feeling something shift inside me, a crack in the foundation of my carefully constructed patience. Jason appeared beside me, his hand warm on my shoulder. Debbie? I nodded. What did the witch want this time? Family gathering, Saturday. Apparently I have to be there, or I'll bring shame upon the Brooks dynasty. Jason's jaw tightened. Tell her to go to hell. I wish I could. I glanced back at Mom's casket, surrounded by roses she would have hated. She preferred wildflowers, untamed and free. But Greg needs to grow a pair and stand up to his mother. It's complicated. It's really not, sis. Jason squeezed my shoulder. Mom wanted better for you than this. Remember what she always said about people who mistake kindness for weakness, I finished. I know. The funeral director appeared, gesturing that it was time. As we walked back to join the mourners, I felt something crystallize in my chest. Mom had spent her life teaching me to be strong, to be kind but never doormat. And here I was, letting Debbie Brooks walk all over me while my mother's body wasn't even cold. Maybe it was grief, maybe it was rage, but standing there, watching them lower Mom's casket, I made a decision. Debbie wanted me at her precious gathering? Fine. I'd be there. But not as the compliant daughter-in-law she expected. It was time to show her exactly who my mother had raised me to be. Greg's text arrived just as I finished boxing up the last of Mom's art supplies. Have to fly to Portland tonight. Client emergency. Back Friday night before Mom's dinner. Sorry, love you. The brushes in my hands, Mom's favorite sable hair ones, suddenly felt heavier. Of course he had to leave. Of course it had to be this week. I set the brushes down before I could snap them in half. He's running away again? Jason stood in the doorway of Mom's studio, arms crossed. The afternoon light caught the silver in his hair. When had that started showing up? Client emergency. The words tasted bitter. Convenient timing. You mean Debbie's timing. Jason picked up one of Mom's half-finished canvases. Want to bet she orchestrated this? I grabbed my phone, pulled up Greg's mother's number, then stopped. What would I even say? Did you send my husband away so I'd be alone while grieving? She'd deny it, make me sound paranoid, probably tell Greg I was becoming unstable. Don't, Jason warned. That's what she wants, a reaction she can use against you. The studio felt suffocating suddenly, Mom's presence both everywhere and nowhere. Her easel stood empty in the corner, her coffee mug still on the windowsill with dried paint water inside. I'd have to pack it all up eventually, but right now... I need air, I muttered, heading for the back garden. My phone buzzed again. Emily, Greg's sister. We weren't close, but she'd sent a sympathy card when Mom died. More than Debbie had done. Ayla? Are you okay? I just heard about Greg's trip. I'm fine. The lie came automatically. Just packing up Mom's studio. I can come help, Emily offered. And I should warn you, Mother's planning something for Saturday. Something big. My stomach clenched. What kind of something? I'm not supposed to tell anyone, but... Emily lowered her voice. She's announcing the sale of Dad's gallery. She's already found a buyer. The world tilted sideways. Henry's gallery, where he'd featured Mom's work for years, where Greg and I had met during one of her shows, where Debbie had first shown her disapproval of me, the struggling artist's daughter who'd caught her son's eye. Henry agreed to this? Dad doesn't know yet. Emily's voice cracked. She's presenting it as a done deal. Says it's time to modernize the family legacy or something. I gripped the garden fence, feeling splinters dig into my palm. Does Greg know? Nobody knows except Mother and me. I only found out because I overheard her on the phone with the buyers. A pause. Ayla, there's more. The buyers? They're planning to convert it into office space. All the local artists who show there will lose their space, including the retrospective of Mom's work that Henry had promised to host next month. The one thing I'd been holding on to, the last chance to share her art with the world. I have to go, I said, my mind already racing. Thanks for telling me, Emily. Be careful, she warned. Mother's been different lately, more controlling, ever since Dad started talking about retiring. After hanging up, I stood in Mom's garden, surrounded by the wildflowers she'd planted. The ones Debbie had once called common weeds at a family dinner. Mom had just smiled and said some people couldn't tell the difference between strength and showiness. I pulled out my phone again and called Jason. Remember when you said I should tell Debbie to go to hell? My voice was steady now, cold. I think I found my moment. What happened? She's selling Henry's gallery, without telling him. The announcement's happening at Saturday's dinner. Jason whistled low. That's cold, even for her. She's not just erasing Mom's memory, I said. She's destroying something Henry loves, something that matters to the whole art community here. And she sent Greg away so he couldn't interfere. What are you going to do? I looked at Mom's empty studio through the window, then at her garden. Strength hiding in plain sight, masked as something delicate. I'm going to that dinner, I said, and I'm bringing every piece of evidence I can find about the gallery's true value to the community, including Mom's sales records. You're going to war with Debbie Brooks? No. I touched one of Mom's wildflowers, its petals soft but its stem unyielding. I'm going to save Henry's gallery, and if Debbie gets caught in the crossfire, well, that's just karma, isn't it? Saturday arrived with the weight of a funeral shroud. I pulled into the Carter family driveway 15 minutes early, Mom's sales records and gallery press clippings tucked into my bag like ammunition. The house loomed ahead, all Victorian pretension and money, exactly like its owner. Aunt Margaret's car was already there. I froze, hand on the door handle. Aunt Margaret, Debbie's sister and personal town crier, the same woman who'd told half the art community that I'd trapped Greg into marriage through my mother's connections. Need backup? Emily materialized beside my car window, making me jump. She glanced at the house. Mother's been in rare form today, already made the housekeeper cry. Lovely. I got out, smoothing my dress, definitely not black, as commanded. Is your dad here? Working late at the gallery. Emily's mouth twisted. Mother's timing as usual. We walked up together, the gravel crunching under our feet. Through the front window, I could see Aunt Margaret gesturing animatedly to someone. My stomach dropped as I recognized her audience, the Prescotts, who owned 3 galleries downtown. Buyers? I whispered to Emily. She nodded. Mother's been courting them for weeks. Inside, Debbie held court in the living room, wearing a designer dress that probably cost more than my car. Her eyes landed on me, narrowing at my arrival time. Ayla, dear, early for once? I learned from the best, Debbie. I smiled, all teeth. You always say punctuality shows respect for family. Something flickered in her expression. Surprise, maybe suspicion. Before she could respond, Aunt Margaret swooped in. Ayla, we were just discussing your mother's interesting career choices. Her voice dripped false sympathy. Such a shame she never quite broke through commercially. But I suppose that's what happens when artists refuse to adapt to market demands. The room went quiet. Even the Prescotts looked uncomfortable. I felt Emily tense beside me. Funny you should mention that. I opened my bag, pulling out a folder. I brought something that might interest everyone, especially you, Mrs. Prescott. Debbie's hand shot out. Now isn't the time for sales records. I dodged her grasp, addressing Mrs. Prescott directly. From the gallery's last quarter, including my mother's show, which brought in more revenue than any other exhibition in the past 5 years. Mrs. Prescott's eyebrows rose. Really? Deborah told us the gallery had been struggling lately. Oh, did she? I laid out the documents on the coffee table. That's strange because according to these numbers, which Henry certified himself, local artist showcases have increased profits by 40% since last year. Those are private records, Debbie snapped. You have no right. Actually, Emily stepped forward. As the gallery's social media manager, I can confirm these numbers. And there's more. She pulled out her phone, showing Mrs. Prescott something. Our online engagement has doubled since we started featuring local artists. Aunt Margaret tried to intervene. But surely modernization is already happening, I cut in, under Henry's leadership. Unless there's another reason someone would want to sell a profitable gallery without consulting its owner. The room temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. Mrs. Prescott turned to Debbie, her professional smile gone brittle. Deborah, you assured us Henry was on board with this sale. He is, Debbie said quickly. He just doesn't know all the details yet. You know how artists can be about change. They need a gentle approach. Like how you gently sent Greg away this week. The words escaped before I could stop them. So he couldn't warn his father about your plans? Gasps rippled through the room. Emily touched my arm in warning, but I was past caring. Weeks of grief and rage boiled over as I faced my mother-in-law. You've spent years dismissing artists like my mother, treating creativity like some kind of character flaw. But you know what really terrifies you? That we see through you, that we can capture truth in ways your money can't control. Debbie stepped closer, her voice deadly quiet. You ungrateful little... The front door opened. Henry walked in, still wearing his paint-stained gallery clothes. He took in the scene, the documents, the Prescotts, his wife's fury, and my defiance. What's going on here? Debbie's face went white. In that moment, I saw real fear in her eyes. Not of losing the gallery, but of losing control, of being exposed, and I realized this was just the beginning. The aftermath of Henry's arrival exploded like a bomb in slow motion. I sat in my car outside Mom's empty house, hands shaking as I replayed the scene. Henry's face darkening as the truth emerged, Debbie's desperate attempts to explain, the Prescotts' hasty departure. My phone hadn't stopped buzzing since I'd left. Greg's name flashed on the screen again. 4th call in an hour. I let it ring. A tap on my window made me jump. Jason stood there, holding 2 cups of coffee. I hadn't even heard him pull up. You look like hell, he said, handing me a cup through the window. You should see the other guy. I took a sip, burning my tongue. Henry threw Debbie out. Temporarily, he says. But still. Good for him. Jason leaned against my car. So why do you look like someone died? Again? Before I could answer, my phone lit up with a text from Emily. Mother's staying at Aunt Margaret's. She's telling everyone you orchestrated this whole thing to steal her family. Greg's on his way home early. Because it's not over, I said, showing Jason the message. Debbie's just changing tactics. Let her try. You have proof. I have gallery records I technically stole. I pressed my forehead against the steering wheel. And now Greg's coming home to find his family imploding. That's not your fault, isn't it? I looked up at the house, Mom's house, dark and accusatory in the twilight. Mom always said revenge was like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. Maybe she was right. Jason's phone chimed. His expression changed as he read whatever appeared on his screen. What? I asked. Nothing. He pocketed the phone too quickly. Just work stuff. The lie hung between us, heavy as cemetery dirt. Jason had never been able to lie to me, not since we were kids, and he tried to cover up breaking Mom's favorite vase. Show me. Ayla. Show me the damn phone, Jason. He hesitated, then handed it over. The message was from Debbie. Think carefully about whose secrets you want exposed. Remember our conversation last month? What conversation? My voice sounded distant, even to myself. What secrets? Jason wouldn't meet my eyes. It's complicated. Uncomplicate it. He took a deep breath. Debbie came to me after Mom's diagnosis, said she had proof that Mom's biggest paintings, the ones that launched her career, were actually done by her mentor. Said she'd keep quiet if I helped convince you to back off about the gallery. The coffee cup crumpled in my hand, hot liquid spilling over my fingers. I barely felt it. You knew? The words tasted like ash. You knew she was planning to sell the gallery? Not exactly. She just said changes were coming, and it would be better if you weren't involved. He reached for me. I was trying to protect Mom's legacy. I jerked away. By conspiring with Debbie, the woman who's been trying to erase Mom from family history since day one? The proof looked real, Ayla. The dates, the signatures. Get out of my sight. My voice shook. Now. Please, just let me— Get out! He backed away, hands raised in surrender. I watched him drive off in my rearview mirror, my vision blurring. My phone buzzed again. Greg. Landing in an hour. We need to talk. Of course we did. His mother was homeless, his father wasn't speaking to anyone, and his wife had just blown up decades of family dynamics. And now this betrayal from the one person I thought I could trust. I started the car, muscle memory taking me toward the gallery. Henry would still be there. He always worked late when things got rough at home. Maybe he could tell me if there was any truth to Debbie's claims about Mom's work. Maybe he could help me understand why everyone I loved seemed to be choosing sides in a war I never wanted to fight. Or maybe I was just running away from the real question. When did revenge stop being about justice and start being about survival? The gallery lights were still on when I pulled up. Through the window, I could see Henry standing in front of one of Mom's paintings, staring like he was seeing it for the first time. I took a deep breath and reached for the door handle. Time to find out what other secrets this family was hiding. Henry didn't turn when I entered the gallery. He stood transfixed before Mom's largest painting. Wildflowers at Midnight, the piece that had launched her career 15 years ago. The one Debbie claimed was a fraud. Your mother painted this the summer you broke your arm, Henry said, still studying the canvas. I remember because she worked on it in the hospital while you slept. Said the fluorescent lights made the colors look different. My throat tightened. You remember that? I remember everything about your mother's work. He finally turned, his eyes sharp despite his exhaustion, including who really painted it. The gallery felt suddenly airless. Henry, Debbie showed me the proof she claims to have. He moved to his desk, pulled out a thick folder. Want to know what I found interesting? The paper's wrong. What? The documents she has, letters between your mother and her mentor, dated signatures on preliminary sketches. They're all on paper that wasn't manufactured until 2018. He spread the papers out. Someone went to a lot of trouble to forge these recently. Relief made my knees weak. So Mom didn't, steal someone else's work? God, no. Henry laughed bitterly. But Debbie needed leverage. She's been planning this gallery sale for months, collecting ammunition against anyone who might stop her. My phone buzzed. Greg again. I silenced it. Does she know you figured this out? Not yet, but she will when the police get involved. I froze. Police? The sale contract she tried to push through, forged my signature? Henry's voice was steel. That's fraud, Ayla. Criminal charges. The gallery door chimed. Emily burst in, face flushed. Mother's calling an emergency family meeting, tomorrow night. She's telling everyone Ayla manipulated Dad into turning against her. Let her try, I started, but Emily cut me off. She has recordings. Phone calls between you and Jason discussing the gallery records. She's painting you as the mastermind behind all of this. My laugh sounded hollow even to me. Of course she does, because heaven forbid she face consequences for her own actions. There's more. Emily wouldn't meet my eyes. Greg, he's at Aunt Margaret's, with her. The world tilted sideways. My husband, choosing his mother's side without even hearing my version. Just like Jason had chosen Debbie's lies over Mom's truth. Henry's hand gripped my shoulder. We need a plan. I have one. I pulled out my phone, pulled up the recording app I'd started using weeks ago, played the conversation where Debbie had threatened to ruin Mom's reputation if I didn't step back. Then another, where she'd bragged about manipulating Greg into that convenient business trip. Emily's eyes widened. You've been gathering evidence, too? I learned from the best. The words tasted bitter. Debbie taught me all about keeping receipts. This could destroy the family, Emily whispered. The family's already destroyed. I looked at the painting again, at Mom's signature in the corner, bold and true. But maybe it needs to be, so we can build something honest from the ruins. My phone lit up with a text from Jason. Debbie showed me the real proof, Mom's mentor's signature under the paint. I'm sorry. Something snapped inside me. Henry, do you have an X-ray machine here for authenticating paintings? He nodded slowly. In the conservation room. Why? I walked to Wildflowers at midnight, ran my fingers along the frame. Because tomorrow night, when Debbie tries to destroy Mom's legacy, I want to be ready. I want to prove, layer by layer, stroke by stroke, exactly who created this masterpiece. And if you're wrong, Emily asked softly, if there is something under the paint? I thought of Mom in that hospital room, painting while I slept. Of all the times she'd told me that truth, like wildflowers, would always find its way through concrete. Then I'll face that truth too. I turned to Henry. But first, let's see what your machines can tell us about my mother's work, and about the woman trying to bury it under her own lies. The emergency family meeting looked more like a trial, with Debbie holding court at Aunt Margaret's oversized dining table. Greg sat beside her, his face unreadable. The X-ray results from Mom's painting burned in my bag like a loaded gun. Now that we're all here, Debbie began, her voice dripping concern, we need to discuss Ayla's recent episodes. Episodes. Like I was some unstable patient rather than someone who'd caught her in multiple lies. I felt Emily squeeze my hand under the table. You mean when I exposed your forged gallery contracts? The words shot out before I could stop them. See? Debbie gestured at me. These paranoid accusations, the erratic behavior, the theft of confidential gallery documents, grief can do terrible things to a person's mind. Greg shifted uncomfortably, but said nothing. Coward. Play them the recordings, Mother, Emily said suddenly. The ones you claim prove Ayla's manipulation. Debbie's smile flickered. Those aren't necessary. Actually, they are. I pulled out my phone. Because I have recordings too. Should we compare notes? Enough. Greg's voice cracked through the room. Both of you stop. Greg, I started, but he cut me off. I found something in Mom's studio. He pulled out a yellowed envelope. A letter from your mother's mentor dated 15 years ago, confessing that he helped her create her early works, including Wildflowers at Midnight. The room spun. That's impossible, we just X-rayed. There's more. Greg wouldn't meet my eyes. Bank transfers, your mother paying him to keep quiet. Mom didn't forge anything, Ayla. She just found the truth you've been denying. I yanked the X-ray results from my bag, but my hands shook so badly I dropped them. Papers scattered across the floor, proof of Mom's original brush strokes, her distinctive underlayer technique. But no one was looking at them. They were all watching me fall apart. Your mother was talented at hiding things, Debbie said softly. Like mother, like daughter. Shut up. The words came out as a whisper. I tried to handle this privately, spare you the public shame, but you insisted on making accusations, threatening legal action. I said, shut up. Ayla. Jason stepped forward. When had he arrived? Maybe it's time to consider that Mom wasn't who we thought. Don't you dare! I backed away from the table. Don't you dare help her destroy this. No one's destroying anything, Greg said. We're trying to help you accept the truth. The truth. I looked around the room, at Debbie's practiced concern, at Jason's betrayal, at Greg's distance, at the scattered x-rays showing Mom's authentic work, ignored in favor of convenient lies. You want truth? My voice sounded strange, distant. Here's truth. I have proof of every manipulation, every lie, every power play you've made. I faced Debbie directly, including your confession about forging Henry's signature on those contracts. Careful, dear. Debbie's mask slipped, revealing something harder. You're not the only one with evidence. That night you broke into the gallery, the security cameras caught everything. My blood froze. Henry had given me his keys, but on paper, after hours. So here's my suggestion, Debbie continued. We all agree to keep certain truths private. The gallery sale proceeds as planned, and your mother's reputation stays intact, complicated, but intact. You're blackmailing me? I'm offering you protection. From your own rash decisions. Greg reached for my hand. I jerked away. Ayla, please, he said. Let's just end this. End this. End Mom's legacy. End my fight for truth. End everything on Debbie's terms. I looked at the x-rays again, at Mom's distinctive brushstrokes hidden beneath the final image. Layers of truth, waiting to be revealed. Just like Mom had taught me. You're right, I said quietly. This needs to end. I pulled out my phone one last time, pressed play. Debbie's voice filled the room. Of course I forged Henry's signature. He's too sentimental about that gallery. Sometimes you have to force people to accept change. The color drained from Debbie's face as her own words condemned her. But I wasn't finished. I sent copies to Henry's lawyer an hour ago. I met Greg's shocked gaze. Sometimes you have to force people to face the truth. The room erupted in chaos. But for the first time since Mom died, I felt perfectly calm. Let them all choose sides now. The police arrived within hours of my revelation. I watched from Mom's studio as they led Debbie out of Aunt Margaret's house in handcuffs, her perfect makeup finally cracking along with her composure. You've destroyed this family. Greg stood in the doorway, his shadow cutting across Mom's easel. Are you happy now? Funny. I traced Mom's signature on an unfinished canvas. I thought that's what your mother was doing when she forged legal documents and tried to steal the gallery. She was trying to protect our future. By erasing my past? He stepped closer, and for a moment I saw the man I'd fallen in love with, before Debbie had twisted everything. The letter about your mother is a forgery. I pulled out my phone, showed him the authentication report Henry's expert had rushed through. The paper's wrong, the ink's wrong, even the signature's wrong. Your mother got sloppy when she panicked. Why would she? Because she couldn't stand that Mom's art was worth more than her social status. The truth felt like glass in my throat. And she couldn't stand that you chose me. A commotion outside drew our attention. Jason stood on the lawn, arguing with Emily. When he saw me in the window, he started forward, but Emily grabbed his arm. Don't, I heard her say. There's something you need to know first. She handed him a phone, probably showing him the proof of Debbie's forgeries, the same evidence that had convinced Henry to press charges. I watched my brother's face crumple as his part in Debbie's scheme finally hit him. I should have trusted you, Greg said quietly, when you first said something was wrong. Stop. I turned away from the window. You don't get to rewrite history now that it's convenient. You chose her side, every time. She's my mother, and that woman she tried to destroy, that was my mother. I grabbed my bag, started gathering the last of Mom's supplies. The difference is, mine taught me to stand up for the truth, no matter what it cost. Where are you going? Henry offered me Mom's old studio space at the gallery, said it's time for new artists to carry on her legacy. Ayla, please. He reached for me. We can fix this. I stepped back, feeling the distance between us like a physical wound. Can we? Because your mother's facing criminal charges, your father's filing for divorce, and you still can't admit she was wrong. I admit she went too far. Too far? I laughed. the sound sharp as broken glass. She tried to destroy my mother's reputation. She forged documents. She manipulated everyone around her, including you. That's not too far, Greg. That's who she is. A knock at the studio door made us both jump. Emily stood there, tears streaming down her face. They found more, she said, in Mother's study. Years of forged documents, manipulated contracts. She's been doing this for decades. Greg staggered like he'd been hit. That's not possible. The gallery sale wasn't the first time, Emily continued. Just the first time she got caught. I looked at my husband, really looked at him. Saw the boy who'd been raised to enable his mother's schemes, to choose loyalty over truth. Saw the man who still couldn't break free from her web of lies. I'm staying at Jason's tonight, I said, shouldering my bag. I think we both need time to decide what kind of truth we want to live with. Don't do this, Greg pleaded. Don't let her tear us apart. She didn't tear us apart. I touched his cheek one last time. She just showed us who we really are when it matters. Outside, Jason waited by his car. His eyes were red, his shoulders slumped with guilt. I'm sorry, he started. I should have... Not here. I got into the passenger seat. We'll talk about it later. As we drove away, I watched Greg standing in Mom's studio doorway, surrounded by the truth he'd tried so hard to ignore. Behind him, the evening light caught Mom's unfinished canvas, making the wild colors glow like a promise. Sometimes she used to say, "You have to burn everything down to see what's real underneath." I was finally ready to see what would rise from these ashes. The gallery hummed with quiet conversation as visitors moved between Mom's paintings. Henry had arranged them chronologically, from her earliest works to the unfinished piece from her studio. Each canvas told a story of growth, of defiance, of wild beauty refusing to be contained. I stood before Wildflowers at Midnight, now the centerpiece of her memorial exhibition. The X-ray analysis played on a screen beside it, showing the layers of her creative process. Proof of authenticity, Henry had called it. Proof of truth. She would have hated all this attention. Jason appeared beside me, hands in his pockets. But she would have loved seeing her work here, being understood. Like we're finally understanding each other? He flinched. We hadn't talked much since that night, letting the wounds heal slowly. I should have trusted you more than Debbie's evidence. Yes, I touched the painting's frame. But Mom always said trust is like art. You have to build it layer by layer. Emily approached, carrying a small package. They found this in Mother's study while cataloging evidence. It's addressed to you, Ayla. Inside was a letter from Mom, dated just weeks before she died. My hands trembled as I read. My darling girl, by now you've probably faced your own wildflowers moment, that choice between bending to others' expectations or growing wild and true. Remember, the strongest flowers are the ones that break through concrete. Ayla? Greg stood at the gallery entrance, looking lost in his tailored suit. He'd been staying with Emily since Debbie's arrest, trying to untangle himself from decades of manipulation. The DA offered her a plea deal, he said quietly. She took it. Good. The word felt empty, neither victory nor defeat. I've been thinking about what you said, about choosing sides. He stepped closer, but kept a careful distance. I'm starting therapy, learning to see the patterns. I'm glad. And I was, surprisingly. Not for us. That bridge had burned. But for him. Henry called everyone's attention, standing beside Mom's unfinished canvas. Today isn't just about remembering an artist, he said. It's about honoring truth in all its forms. That's why I'm announcing the gallery's new direction. We're establishing a mentorship program for emerging artists, named in Claire's honor. Applause filled the space. I felt tears threatening, but they weren't grief this time. There's more, Henry continued. The program's first exhibition will feature works about family, truth, and redemption. And our inaugural artist, he looked at me, if she accepts, will be Ayla Brooks. The room spun slightly. I hadn't touched a brush since Mom died, hadn't even thought about my own art while fighting for hers. You should do it, Jason said softly. Show them what happens when wildflowers break through concrete. I looked around the gallery, at Henry's proud smile, Emily's encouraging nod, Greg's complicated expression of loss and understanding. At Mom's paintings, each one a testament to choosing authenticity over acceptance. "I'll need studio space," I said finally. "Already arranged." Henry gestured to a door, the one leading to Mom's old studio. "Some spaces are meant to be passed down." Later, alone in the studio, I found Mom's old brushes laid out on a clean palette. Beside them sat a small pot of wildflowers, Emily's touch, probably. Light streamed through the windows, catching dust motes like scattered stars. I picked up a brush, feeling its familiar weight. On a fresh canvas, I made a single stroke. Bold, defiant, true. Not my mother's style, but not Debbie's controlled precision either. Something new, breaking through the ruins of what was lost. Outside, I could hear the exhibition continuing, life moving forward. But in here, in this space between what was and what could be, I finally understood what Mom had tried to teach me. Revenge isn't about destroying your enemies. It's about refusing to let them destroy what makes you real. I made another stroke on the canvas, then another. Each one a choice, each one a truth, each one wildly, defiantly free.
The package sat on my desk like a landmine waiting to detonate. No return address. Just my name in precise block letters, the kind someone uses when they don't want their handwriting recognized. "Scarlett, the quarterly reports are due tomorrow." Oliver called from his office doorway. "Everything on track?" I nodded, not trusting my voice. The manila envelope seemed to pulse with dark energy. I'd been staring at it for 20 minutes, fingers hovering over the metal clasp, stomach churning. "You look like you've seen a ghost," Oliver said, stepping into my office. "Everything all right?" "Fine." I slipped the package into my drawer. "Just need coffee. Reports will be done by 5. The moment Oliver left, I locked my door and retrieved the envelope. My hands trembled as I worked the clasp open. Inside was a single photograph, glossy and new. The image hit me like a physical blow. Miles, my husband of 8 years, sat on a park bench with his arm around a woman I'd never seen. She was beautiful in that effortless way that makes other women hate themselves a little. But it wasn't her perfectly styled hair or designer sundress that made my blood run cold. It was the baby in her arms. A baby with Miles's distinctive green eyes and cleft chin. My phone buzzed. A text from Miles? "Working late tonight. Don't wait up." I stared at his message until the words blurred. How many other nights had he been working late while building his secret family? The lies stretched back through our marriage like poison ivy, choking everything they touched. The photo slipped from my fingers, landing face up on my desk. The happy little family smiled up at me, mocking every fertility treatment, every negative pregnancy test, every time Miles had held me while I cried about our inability to conceive. "It's not meant to be," he'd say. "We're enough for each other." My phone buzzed again. Jenna this time. "Dress shopping tomorrow. Can't wait to see you, sis." My sister's excitement felt like acid in my chest. Her engagement party was this weekend. She'd asked Miles to give a toast. The thought of him standing there, playing the role of devoted husband while his mistress and child waited somewhere in the wings, made me physically ill. I grabbed my trash can just in time. When I could breathe again, I studied the photo more carefully. The timestamp in the corner showed it was taken 3 days ago. The location tag read Riverside Park. They weren't even trying to hide. "Scarlett?" Oliver's voice accompanied another knock. "Conference call in 5. "Coming?" I tucked the photo into my purse and straightened my blazer. The woman in my office mirror looked exactly the same as she had this morning. How strange that catastrophe leaves no visible marks. The conference call dragged on for an hour. I contributed when necessary, my professional mask firmly in place while my mind raced through years of subtle clues I'd missed or dismissed. The separate bank account for investment purposes. The mysterious work trips that never quite aligned with his company's calendar. The way he'd stopped talking about our future children. When 5 o'clock arrived, I sent Miles a text. "Hope work isn't too stressful. Love you." His response came quickly. "Miss you. See you tonight." I gathered my things, said goodbye to Oliver, and walked to my car with steady steps. Inside, I pulled out the photo again. The anonymous sender had given me a gift, really. The truth, however ugly, was better than living a lie. I started my car and pointed it toward Riverside Park. It was time to see if Miles's little family kept to a regular schedule. You have to try this one. Jenna twirled in a cloud of white tulle, her face glowing. The beating is exactly what I wanted. I forced a smile, though my jaw ached from maintaining this facade. The bridal boutique's lights felt too bright, the champagne too warm, the moment too false. The photograph in my purse might as well have been radioactive. It's beautiful, I managed, but maybe something less princess-like? You've got 4 more to try. Diane cleared her throat from her perch on the velvet settee. Speaking of princesses, Scarlett, when are you and Miles planning to give me a grandchild? The clock is ticking. My champagne flute trembled. I set it down before anyone could notice. We're focusing on careers right now. Nonsense. Diane waved her hand dismissively. Miles makes more than enough, and you're not getting any younger. Jenna shot me an apologetic look as she disappeared behind the curtain to change. I could hear her humming. She always hummed when she was happy. Actually, I said, my voice steady despite the rage bubbling beneath, Miles and I had some tests done, fertility issues. The lie tasted bitter, but not as bitter as the truth. Oh. Diane's face softened with practiced sympathy. Well, there are treatments. My phone buzzed. A text from Miles. Missing you? Dinner tonight? Another buzz? An unknown number. Thought you should see this too. Attached was a photo of Miles leaving a jewelry store last week, carrying a distinctive blue box, the same day he'd told me he was in Chicago for work. Scarlett? Jenna emerged in a sleek silk gown. You look pale. Are you okay? Just hungry. I stood up, gathering my purse. I need some air. Maybe grab a sandwich. But we have 3 more dresses. I'll be quick. I was already moving toward the door. That one's perfect anyway. You should get it. Outside, I leaned against the building's cool stone facade. The jewelry store was only 2 blocks away. My feet carried me there before I could think better of it. The saleswoman smiled as I entered. Welcome to Tiffany's. How can I help you today? I was wondering about a purchase my husband made last week. I pulled up the photo on my phone. This would have been Thursday around 2. Her smile brightened with recognition. Oh yes, Mr. Harrison. Such a lovely choice for his wife's birthday. The sapphire pendant was exquisite. My birthday was in December. It was April. Thank you. I turned to leave, then paused. Did he happen to mention his wife's name? Clara, I believe. He was very specific about the engraving. The bell above the door chimed as another customer entered. I barely registered Diane's voice calling my name as I pushed past her. Scarlett, what are you doing here? She grabbed my arm. Jenna's in tears thinking she upset you. I yanked free. Did you know? Know what? About Clara. The name felt like glass in my mouth. About your grandchild. Diane's face went blank. What grandchild? Scarlett, you're not making sense. The one Miles had with his mistress. I pulled out the first photograph. The one he's been hiding while telling me we can't have children. That grandchild. She stared at the photo, her perfectly manicured hand flying to her throat. There must be some mistake. Miles would never... He did. He does. And he just bought his other family a sapphire pendant while telling me he was in Chicago. Diane's face hardened. We should discuss this privately. Not here, not now. Jenna's wedding. Right. I laughed. The sound sharp enough to make a passing couple stare. Heaven forbid we disturb the perfect family image. I'll just keep pretending while your son builds his other family on the side. Scarlett, tell Jenna I'm sorry. I'll call her later. I started walking, not caring where. Oh, and Diane, congratulations on your grandchild. I hear he has Miles's eyes. Behind me, I heard the boutique's door open again, Jenna's voice calling out. But I kept walking, each step taking me further from the life I thought I had, closer to the revenge I now craved. Miles's car idled outside the Victorian townhouse, its blue paint gleaming in the streetlights. I killed my headlights and watched him climb the steps, carrying takeout bags and what looked like a stuffed animal. The perfect husband, just at the wrong address. My phone lit up. Jenna again. 12 missed calls since I'd left the bridal shop. I switched it off. The townhouse's warm light spilled onto the sidewalk, creating shadow plays through gauzy curtains. A woman's silhouette, Clara, appeared, taking the bags. Then Miles lifted something from her arms. The baby. His son. I grabbed my camera, zooming in as Miles cradled the child. The tenderness in his expression made my stomach turn. 8 years of marriage, and I'd never seen him look at anything that way. A text notification broke my concentration. Following your husband too? We should talk. See. I scanned the street but saw no one. Another message appeared. Coffee shop across the street. I'm in the back booth. The cafe was nearly empty. A woman in a charcoal blazer sat alone, her red hair swept into a sleek ponytail. She looked up as I approached, gesturing to the seat across from her. Catherine Morris, she said. I'm Miles's financial advisor. She slid a folder across the table. Or rather I was, until I noticed some irregularities. I opened the folder. Bank statements, property records, insurance policies. Why are you showing me this? Because your husband's been embezzling from his company to support his other family. Catherine's smile was sharp. And I have proof he's been doing it through accounts in your name. The room tilted slightly. That's impossible, Of course you didn't, but your signature's on everything. She tapped the documents. Excellent forgeries. The FBI would be very interested. You sent the photographs? Miles cost me my job when I confronted him. She sipped her coffee. Consider this professional courtesy. Through the window, I could see Miles leaving the townhouse. He checked his watch, probably thinking up tonight's excuse. Why didn't you go to the authorities? Same reason you haven't confronted him yet. Catherine gathered her things. Sometimes revenge is better served slowly. After she left, I studied the documents. Joint accounts I'd never seen. Investment properties purchased in my name. A trust fund for his son, all funded with stolen money, all tied to me. My phone buzzed again when I turned it back on. Miles. Home soon. Made reservations at Giovanni's. Wear that black dress I love. I thought of all the nights I'd worn that dress, thinking he was looking at me the way he'd just looked at his son. All the times I'd believed his lies about working late, about our future, about us. The cafe door chimed. I looked up to see Clara entering, a baby carrier in one hand. She ordered, then scanned for a seat. Our eyes met. For a moment, we just stared at each other. The wife and the mistress, both pawns in Miles's game. Then something shifted in her expression. Recognition. She walked over slowly, realization dawning on her face. You're her, aren't you? The business partner he mentioned? Business partner? The laugh that escaped me sounded foreign. Is that what he calls me? Clara sank into Catherine's vacant seat, her face draining of color. He said he was divorced, that his ex-wife was trying to ruin him financially. We're not divorced. I slid the photograph across the table. Someone sent me this yesterday. She stared at it, then at me. The baby stirred in his carrier, making soft noises. Miles's son. I'm going to be sick, Clara whispered. Join the club. I pushed the folder toward her. But first, you should see what else your boyfriend's been up to. Her hands trembled as she opened it. Outside, the streetlights flickered on, casting shadows across documents that would destroy the man we'd both loved. The man who'd played us both for fools. My phone lit up one final time. Miles. Almost home. Can't wait to see you. I looked at Clara, at the evidence between us, at the baby who shared his father's eyes. What do you say we give him a surprise instead? Jenna's engagement party hummed with fake laughter and expensive champagne. I stood in the corner of our grandparents' garden, watching Miles charm the crowd. He'd always been good at that, making people believe whatever version of himself he wanted them to see. You've been avoiding my calls. Jenna appeared beside me, radiant in her cream cocktail dress. What happened at the boutique? Nothing. I drained my champagne. Just feeling under the weather. Liar. She linked her arm through mine. You're doing that thing with your jaw, like when we were kids and you were keeping secrets to protect me. Across the garden, Miles caught my eye and raised his glass. Next to him, Diane was showing off photos on her phone, probably pictures of her secret grandson. Some things are better left unsaid, I managed, especially during your engagement party. Scarlet. Jenna's grip tightened. You're scaring me. Before I could respond, Oliver approached with 2 fresh glasses. Mind if I borrow the bride's sister for a moment? Jenna hesitated, then kissed my cheek. This conversation isn't over. Oliver waited until she was out of earshot. I received some concerning information about Miles's accounts at work. My hand froze mid-sip. What kind of information? The kind that could land him, and potentially you, in federal prison. He lowered his voice. Someone's been systematically moving company funds through shell corporations. Your signature's all over the paperwork. I never signed anything. I know. Oliver's eyes were kind but serious. That's why I came to you first. The board meets Monday to discuss pressing charges. The party's chatter became white noise. Through the crowd, I watched Miles lift someone's baby, cooing and playing the devoted uncle. The sight made me physically ill. How long have you known? I asked. About the money? 3 days? About Clara? Oliver sighed. I saw them last month at that new French place downtown. Didn't know how to tell you. My grandmother's prized roses blurred as tears threatened. I blinked them back. I need air. I slipped through the French doors into the quiet of the house. Family photos lined the hallway. Jenna and me as children, our grandparents at their 50th anniversary, Miles and me on our wedding day. All lies in gilded frames. There you are. Miles's voice behind me. I've barely seen you all evening. I didn't turn around. Busy night. His hands settled on my shoulders, familiar and foreign at once. You seem tense. Everything okay? How's your son? His hands stilled. The grandfather clock in the foyer ticked 7 endless seconds before he spoke. What are you talking about? I shrugged off his touch and faced him. The baby in the photo, the one with your eyes, the one you've been supporting with stolen money in my name. Color drained from his face. Scarlet, don't. I held up my hand. The FBI is investigating the embezzlement. Oliver knows everything. I can explain. Can you explain the forgeries, the shell corporations? How about explaining to Clara that she's not your only wife? His expression shifted from shock to calculation. I recognized it now. The mask adjusting, the lies assembling. Whatever you think you know, he started. I know enough. Through the window, I could see Jenna searching the crowd for me. You have until Monday to confess everything to the board. After that, I'm turning over all the evidence. You'd really send me to prison? You were willing to send me there to protect your lies. I smiled, cold and sharp. Funny how karma works. The door opened. Jenna poked her head in. There you are. Come on, it's time for the toasts. Miles reached for my arm. I stepped back. Coming, sis. Miles was just telling me how excited he is to give his speech. Outside, guests gathered around the makeshift stage. Diane beamed as Miles took the microphone, ever the proud mother. I watched my sister's face glow with happiness, knowing this might be her last moment of believing in perfect families and happy endings. My phone vibrated. A text from Clara. Ready when you are. I looked at Miles, raising his glass to love and loyalty, and typed back 2 words. Tomorrow morning. The morning after the engagement party, I found Miles in his home office, surrounded by papers and empty coffee cups. He didn't look up when I entered. Rough night? I leaned against the doorframe. Or just busy covering your tracks. His fingers paused over the keyboard. I was going to tell you. Before or after I went to prison for your crimes? It's complicated. He rubbed his face, finally meeting my eyes. The money, it started small. Just enough to help Clara with the baby. Then things spiraled. Like your lies? A notification pinged on his computer. I glimpsed Clara's name in the email subject line before he minimized it. I loved you, he said. I still do. Enough to forge my signature? To steal my future along with the company's money? He stood, reaching for me. Let me fix this. I'll confess everything to the board, take full responsibility. The way you took responsibility for your son. The words tasted like acid. Or the way you took responsibility for our fertility issues. His phone buzzed. Clara's face flashed on the screen before he silenced it. She's waiting for you, isn't she? I moved closer, picking up a framed photo from his desk, Us on our honeymoon. Does she know you're married? That you've been lying to both of us? Scarlett, please. I talked to Catherine Morris. The color drained from his face. What did she tell you? Everything. I set the frame down carefully, including where the rest of the money went, the offshore accounts, the property in the Caymans. His expression hardened. Catherine's bitter about being fired. She'll say anything. To protect herself from prosecution, I pulled out my phone, showing him the recording app. The way you tried to protect yourself by making me your fall guy? You're recording this? Insurance. I stopped the recording. In case you try to pin everything on me when the FBI comes knocking. His laugh was ugly. You wouldn't dare. Think about Jenna's wedding, your reputation, our families. Our families! The vase of fresh flowers on his desk caught my eye, identical to the ones I'd seen at Clara's townhouse. You mean like the family you built on the side? Or the one you've been lying to for years? The front door chimed. Miles went rigid. Expecting someone? I asked sweetly. Clara's voice carried up the stairs. Miles, are you home? His eyes widened in panic. Scarlett, wait. I brushed past him, heading for the stairs. Behind me, papers scattered as Miles scrambled to follow. Clara stood in our foyer, holding their son. She froze when she saw me. Perfect timing, I said. We were just discussing Miles's creative accounting. What's going on? Clara's eyes darted between us. Miles? Remember those documents I showed you? I descended the stairs slowly. About the money he's been stealing? Scarlett, stop! Miles grabbed my arm. I yanked free. Tell her, Miles. Tell her about your wife while you're explaining where all that money really went. Clara's face crumpled. Wife? 8 years next month? I held up my left hand, wedding ring glinting. Though I suppose that's about to change. The baby started crying. The sound echoed off the high ceilings, mixing with Clara's shocked inhale and Miles's desperate attempts at damage control. I can explain everything, he started. Save it for the FBI. I reached the bottom step. They'll be here soon enough. Clara backed toward the door, clutching her son. You're married? All this time? Clara, please. Miles moved to follow her. Don't. My voice could have frozen hell. Let her go. You've done enough damage. The door slammed behind Clara. Through the window, I watched her hurry to her car, tears streaming down her face. Miles slumped against the wall. You've ruined everything. No. I headed for the door myself. You did that all on your own. Where are you going? I paused, hand on the doorknob. To tell my sister the truth, then to the FBI. I looked back at him, this stranger I'd loved for 8 years. I suggest you call a lawyer. The door closed behind me with a final click. In my purse, my phone buzzed with a text from Oliver. Board meeting moved up. Tomorrow morning. I smiled as I typed my response. Perfect. The boardroom felt like a tomb. 12 pairs of eyes watched me take my seat, their expressions ranging from pity to suspicion. Miles sat opposite me, flanked by 2 lawyers I'd never seen before. Oliver cleared his throat. Before we begin, Mrs. Harrison, are you sure you don't want legal representation? I have everything I need. I placed my folder on the polished table. Miles's lawyer spoke first. My client wishes to make a statement. Actually, I cut in. I'd like to go first. The door opened. Diane swept in, her designer suit immaculate, her smile razor sharp. I hope I'm not interrupting. My stomach dropped. Miles straightened, confidence returning to his posture. Mother, this is a closed meeting. Oh, but I'm here as a major shareholder. She took a seat next to Miles, and as someone with relevant information about these accusations. I opened my folder, hands steady despite the cold sweat breaking out along my spine. I have documentation of every fraudulent transaction. You mean the transactions you authorized? Diane slid a stack of papers across the table. We found these in your home office last night. The board members murmured as they examined the documents. My signature, perfect forgeries, on everything from wire transfers to offshore account applications. That's not my signature. Our handwriting expert disagrees. Miles's lawyer smiled, as does the notary who witnessed several of these signatures. My phone vibrated. A text from Clara. He threatened to take my son. I'm sorry. The room tilted slightly. Of course, Miles must have gotten to her, used their child as leverage. If you'll look at the evidence I've prepared, I started. The evidence you fabricated to frame my son? Diane's voice could have frozen flame. After embezzling company funds to support your gambling addiction? Gambling addiction? I looked at Oliver, but he wouldn't meet my eyes. That's ridiculous. We have casino receipts. Miles spoke softly, regretfully. And witnesses who'll testify about your problems. The board members exchanged glances. I recognized the shift in the room, the moment they decided I was the villain in this story. Oliver, I pleaded, you know this isn't true. I know you've been under tremendous pressure. His words were careful, rehearsed. The fertility treatments, the marriage counseling. Marriage counseling? Another piece clicked into place. The therapist Miles had insisted on last year. More witnesses for his manufactured narrative. Scarlett, Miles reached across the table. Please, let us help you. I jerked away from his touch. Don't. The company won't press charges, his lawyer offered, provided you agree to treatment and sign over your shares to Mrs. Harrison Sr. The trap snapped shut. They'd planned this perfectly, using my own revenge plot against me. Every piece of evidence I'd gathered had a counter-narrative that painted me as unstable, desperate, dangerous. And if I refuse, then we'll have no choice but to involve the authorities. Diane's smile never wavered. Think of your sister's wedding. The scandal would be unfortunate. My phone buzzed again. Jenna, why is Miles's mom telling everyone you're having a breakdown? The walls closed in. Every path forward led to destruction, mine or others I loved. Miles had outplayed me, using my own protective instincts as weapons. I need air. I stood, papers scattering. 5 minutes. Nobody stopped me as I fled the room. In the hallway, I leaned against the wall, gasping. My phone kept buzzing. Jenna, Clara, unknown numbers probably belonging to reporters Miles had already primed with his version of events. The emergency exit beckoned. I could run, start over somewhere new. But that would mean leaving Jenna vulnerable, abandoning Clara to Miles's manipulation, proving every lie they'd told about me. The boardroom door opened. Oliver stepped out. They're ready for your decision. I straightened, smoothing my jacket. 8 years of marriage had taught me everything about Miles, including how to lie convincingly. Actually, I said, I have one more piece of evidence to present. I pulled out my phone, fingers hovering over Catherine Morris's number. Miles wasn't the only one who could plan ahead. Sometimes revenge required losing everything to win. Shall we? I gestured to the door, my smile as sharp as Diane's. Time to show them how dangerous a cornered woman could be. I placed my phone on the boardroom table. Speaker mode activated. Catherine, you're on with the board of directors. Miles's smirk faltered. Diane's hand tightened on her son's shoulder. Ms. Morris, Oliver leaned forward. You were terminated for making unfounded accusations. Actually, Catherine's voice filled the room. I was fired for discovering something interesting about the Harrison family trust. The door opened. Clara walked in, holding her son. Behind her, 2 FBI agents followed. What is this? Diane stood, but one agent gestured for her to remain seated. The trust fund was clever, I said, watching Miles' face drain of color. Setting it up in your mother's name, using it to launder company money. Did you really think I wouldn't find the connection? You have no proof, Miles started. But I do. Clara stepped forward. Everything's in the nursery camera footage, including Miles's confession about the embezzlement, the fake signatures, all of it. Miles lunged for his phone. The second FBI agent intercepted him. The nanny cam? Miles whispered. You recorded every visit. Clara's voice shook. Every lie you told about being single, about the money being yours, about Scarlett being your unstable business partner who was trying to steal from the company. Diane's perfectly maintained facade cracked. You stupid boy. What have you done? What you taught him to do. I opened another folder. Protect the family name at any cost, even if it meant destroying others. The board members murmured as copies of bank statements circulated, the real ones this time, showing the complex web of transactions between the company, the trust, and Miles' secret accounts. Mrs. Harrison Sr., one FBI agent stepped forward. "We have some questions about your role in these transactions." Diane's face hardened. "I want my lawyer." "Of course." The agent smiled. "We can discuss the offshore accounts at the federal building." Miles stood, desperation rolling off him in waves. "Scarlett, please, think about what this will do to everyone, to Jenna's wedding." "Don't you dare use my sister." I kept my voice level. "You did this, all of it. The lies, the theft, the manipulation, and now you'll face the consequences." The gambling addiction story was particularly creative, Catherine added through the speaker, using Scarlett's fertility clinic visits to create a paper trail of destructive behavior. Almost brilliant, if it hadn't been so easy to disprove. Clara shifted her son to her other hip. "I trusted you. We both did." "Clara, sweetheart." Miles reached for his child. The baby started crying. The sound cut through the tension like a knife, making everything suddenly brutally real. "Mr. Harrison." The first agent stepped between Miles and Clara. "You'll need to come with us." "You can't do this." Miles looked around wildly. "Mother, tell them." But Diane was already being let out, her lawyer on speed dial. The board chairman cleared his throat. "Ms. Morris, would you consider returning to your position? We'll need someone to audit the full extent of the damage." "Gladly." Catherine's satisfaction was audible. "I'll be in tomorrow morning." I gathered my things as the agents read Miles his rights. Clara caught my arm before I could leave. "I'm sorry I didn't come forward sooner." She bounced her fussing son. "When he threatened custody, you protected your child." I touched the baby's soft cheek. "That's what matters now," Miles called out as they led him past. "Scarlett, wait." "Goodbye, Miles." I didn't turn around. "Give my regards to your mother. You'll probably be sharing a lawyer." Outside, reporters had already gathered. Oliver appeared at my side. "The company will release a statement supporting you fully." He handed me a business card. "This is my personal attorney. Use her for the divorce." My phone buzzed. "Jenna, just saw the news. Coming over now. Love you." I stepped into the sunlight, cameras flashing. For the first time in weeks, I could breathe freely. Sometimes revenge wasn't about destroying someone else. It was about refusing to let them destroy you. Clara followed, shielding her son from the cameras. We shared a look of understanding. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. But today, truth had won. And that was enough. The courthouse steps gleamed in the morning sun as I signed the final divorce papers. My lawyer tucked them into her briefcase while I watched Miles being led to a waiting prison transport vehicle, his designer suit replaced by orange coveralls. 5 years, Catherine said, appearing beside me, plus full restitution. Diane got 3. I handed her an envelope. "The board approved your reinstatement bonus." "Keep it," she smiled. Watching the Harrisons fall was payment enough. Across the plaza, Clara waited with her son. The baby wore a blue romper I'd bought him last week. Some might call it strange, forming a friendship with your ex-husband's mistress. But shared wounds create unexpected bonds. "Ready?" Jenna linked her arm through mine. Her engagement ring caught the light. A simple band now. The original Harrison family diamond returned along with other ill-gotten gifts. "Almost." I approached Clara and the baby. "Meeting the realtor at 11? She nodded. "The townhouse showing. You're still sure about this?" "The investment is solid." I touched the baby's cheek. "And everyone deserves a fresh start." My phone buzzed. Oliver, probably with more questions about the company restructuring. I'd answer later. Some moments deserved undivided attention. "You never told me," Clara said quietly. "Who sent that first photograph?" I watched Miles disappear into the transport van. "Does it matter?" "I suppose not." She adjusted the baby's hat. "Some mysteries are better left unsolved." Jenna called from her car. "We'll be late for the dress fitting." The wedding was smaller now, reimagined without the Harrison fortune. Better that way. Built on truth rather than carefully constructed lies. "You know," Clara said, "he asked about you during the sentencing." "And?" "He said he was sorry, that he never meant to get caught." I touched the spot where my wedding ring used to sit. Some apologies come too late. The baby reached for me, his father's green eyes bright with innocent trust. I lifted him, breathing in that sweet powder smell. In another life, he might have been my stepson. In this one, he was something more complicated, a reminder that love and betrayal often wear the same face. The trust fund is set up, I told Clara. Catherine will manage it until he's 18. You didn't have to. Yes, I did. I handed the baby back. Not for Miles. For him. My phone buzzed again. A text from an unknown number. Thank you for the truth. D. I deleted it without responding. Diane's attempts at redemption from prison held no interest for me. Some bridges aren't meant to be rebuilt. Scarlett, Jenna honked her horn. The seamstress is waiting. I hugged Clara goodbye, breathing in the future rather than the past. The plaza was filling with people, lawyers, clients, other lives in transition. None of them knew they were standing on the exact spot where I'd received that first photograph, the moment that shattered my world and set me free. Coming, sis. I joined Jenna in her car, leaving Miles in his transport van behind. Through the rearview mirror, I watched Clara heading toward the realtor's office, toward her fresh start. You know what Grandma used to say? Jenna pulled into traffic. Sometimes the best revenge is living well. I thought of Miles in his prison cell, of Diane's empty mansion, of the life I'd almost settled for. Grandma was wrong. Oh? The best revenge is living truthfully. I closed my eyes, feeling the sun on my face. Everything else is just karma. Jenna laughed, the sound pure and free of shadows. Ahead, the city stretched out like a blank page, waiting to be written. Behind us, the courthouse shrank in the mirror, taking with it 8 years of lies and one spectacular act of revenge. My phone buzzed one last time. Catherine, board meeting tomorrow. Ready to take over as CEO? I smiled, thinking of Miles's face when the vote results would reach his cell. Some revenge plots take years to unfold. The best ones never really end. Ready, I typed back, and meant it.
The text message glowed in the darkness of my car. St. Mary's Church, 2 p.m. You need to see this. Unknown number. My hands trembled as I gripped the steering wheel, watching guests filter into the old stone building through my rain-streaked windshield. I'm Eleanor. And right now, I'm sitting in my car like some cut-rate private investigator, wondering if I've finally lost my mind. My husband Ryan told me he had a business conference in Chicago. That's what the calendar said. That's what his secretary confirmed. That's what the hotel reservation showed. But here I am, parked across from a church in Boston, because some stranger decided to play guardian angel, or devil. I haven't decided which yet. This is insane, I whisper to myself, but I'm already reaching for my sunglasses. The church bells start their mournful toll as I slip out of my car, heels clicking against wet pavement. Each step feels like I'm walking toward my own execution. I slip in through the side door, finding a spot behind a marble pillar. The familiar scent of lilies and incense hits me, and for a moment, I'm transported back to my own wedding day. 7 years ago. Same church, different dreams. The organ starts playing, and my heart stops. Because there he is, Ryan, my Ryan. Standing at the altar in a tuxedo I've never seen before, hands clasped in front of him, that familiar nervous tick in his jaw. He's not in Chicago. He's here, waiting for... The bride appears at the entrance, and the ground shifts beneath my feet. Long, dark hair, olive skin, that graceful walk I'd know anywhere. Megan, my best friend since 3rd grade. The woman who helped me pick out my own wedding dress. Dearly beloved. The priest's words fade into white noise as I watch them exchange vows. My husband and my best friend, promising to love each other until death do them part. Just like he promised me. Just like we all promised each other when we were kids. No secrets, no lies, friends forever. I don't remember leaving the church. Don't remember the drive home. But I remember the moment I decided. Sitting in our kitchen, our perfect, magazine-worthy kitchen that Ryan insisted on remodeling last year, watching the sun set through windows that suddenly felt like prison bars. My phone buzzes. Ryan. Conference running late. Don't wait up. I pour myself a glass of his favorite scotch, the one he saves for special occasions. The liquid burns my throat as I swallow, and I welcome the pain. It's real. Unlike everything else in my life. Another text from the unknown number. Now you know. What will you do about it? What will I do? I laugh, and it sounds foreign to my ears. Sharp, dangerous, like breaking glass. I open my laptop and start typing. Dear Laura, I hope this email finds you well. I've been thinking about hosting that family reunion you've always wanted. Because that's the thing about betrayal. It's not just about the act itself. It's about the elaborate dance of lies that came before it. The carefully constructed alibis, the practiced smiles, the casual touches that meant nothing. And Ryan, my charming, perfect Ryan, has always been an excellent dancer. But so have I. I take another sip of scotch and smile. Let them have their honeymoon. Let them think they've won. I've got time. And I've got something better than their love. I've got their trust. The sun sets completely, leaving me in darkness. But for the first time today, I can see everything clearly. The old photo album feels heavy in my lap, each page weighted with memories I can't trust anymore. There we are, Ryan, Megan, and me at 16, sprawled on my parents' lawn. Ryan's arm is around both of us, and we're laughing at some forgotten joke. The edges of the photograph are worn, like everything else about that summer. I ordered Chinese, Ryan calls from downstairs. His footsteps echo through our house, each one making my skin crawl. He's been home 3 days since the wedding, his second wedding, acting like nothing's changed, like he didn't just shatter everything we built. I close the album as he enters our bedroom, carrying 2 plates of food I won't touch. Remember when we used to get takeout with Megan every Friday? The words leave my mouth before I can stop them, sharp as broken glass. Ryan's smile doesn't quite reach his eyes. That was a lifetime ago. Was it? I stand up, letting the album fall to the floor with a satisfying thud. Because I saw her 3 days ago. She looked exactly the same. His chopsticks freeze halfway to his mouth. Just for a second. Blink, and you'd miss it. But I catch it. I catch everything now. Eleanor. He sets his plate down, approaching me with that concerned expression he uses on difficult clients. Have you been drinking? I laugh, and it sounds like my mother's laugh after Dad left. That's your move? Gaslight the wife into thinking she's crazy? I'm worried about you. His hand reaches for mine. I step back. When did it start? The question burns my throat. Was it before our wedding? During? Tell me, Ryan, was I the backup plan or the cover story? You're not making any sense. But his left hand twitches. His tell when he's lying. I've spent 7 years cataloging his habits, learning his rhythms. Funny how clearly you see things when you're looking for the cracks. I was at St. Mary's on Tuesday. The words hang between us like smoke. Nice tux, by the way. Better than the one you wore at our wedding. The mask slips. Just for a moment, but it's enough. His eyes go cold, calculating. This is the real Ryan, the one I never let myself see. It's not what you think. Don't. My voice doesn't shake. I'm proud of that. Don't insult me with excuses. I watched you marry my best friend while I was supposedly your loving wife at home. What exactly should I think? He runs his hands through his hair. Another tell. It's complicated. There are things you don't understand. Like what? The joint bank accounts you opened? The property you bought together? Or maybe the fact that your mother knew the whole time? That stops him. How did you— I'm not the idiot you think I am. I move to the dresser, pull out the stack of documents I've collected over the past 3 days. You should really use better passwords than our anniversary date, though I guess that's meaningless now. Eleanor, please. He reaches for the papers. I hold them back. We can work this out. I'll explain everything. Like you explained your business trip to Chicago. I spread the documents on the bed. Bank statements, property deeds, emails. Or should we discuss the trust fund Laura set up for your children with Megan? His face goes white. You had no right. I had every right. The scream tears from my throat, raw and primal. I'm your wife. I was your friend. We grew up together, all 3 of us. And you? I stop, breathing hard. He's staring at me like he's never seen me before. Maybe he hasn't. Maybe I've never seen myself either. Get out. My voice is steady now, certain. This is my house too. Not anymore. I hold up one final document, power of attorney, signed last year when he was too busy to handle our estate planning. You should really read what you sign, Ryan. Now get out before I call Michael and have him escort you out. He leaves. Not because he's afraid, but because he knows this is just the beginning. He knows me well enough for that. I pick up the photo album from the floor, trace our younger faces with my finger. We look so happy, so innocent. Such perfect liars, all of us. The cafe where Megan and I used to share secrets feels smaller now. Maybe it's the weight of what I'm about to do, or maybe everything from my past is shrinking, becoming less significant with each new betrayal I uncover. Megan slides into the seat across from me, still wearing her wedding ring. My wedding ring's twin. The sight of it makes my coffee taste like acid. I didn't think you'd come, she says, fingers nervously tracing the rim of her untouched latte. Funny, I didn't think you'd marry my husband. The words come out softer than intended, which somehow makes them cut deeper. She flinches. Eleanor, did you know about the trust fund? I pull out the bank statements, sliding them across the table like playing cards in a rigged game. The one Laura set up for your future children? Her face drains of color. Not from guilt, from anger. Interesting. What trust fund? Now that's genuine surprise. I watch her scan the documents, her hands shaking slightly. $3 million, I continue. Set aside for the grandchildren Laura always wanted. Guess I wasn't producing them fast enough. This can't be right. Megan pushes the papers away like they're contaminated. Ryan said the marriage was just a formality, for his inheritance. He said, I laugh, and it sounds like breaking glass. What exactly did he say, Megan? That he loved you? That I was cold, distant, career-obsessed? That's what he told his mother about me last month. She looks up sharply. How do you know that? Because I've spent the last week discovering just how thoroughly my husband, our husband, has been playing us both. The waiter approaches. We both wave him away without looking up. There's more, I continue, pulling out my phone. Want to hear the recording of Ryan discussing property investments with Laura? The ones using your family's real estate connections? My family's... Megan's voice trails off. Her mother, Grace, owns one of the largest real estate firms in Boston. A detail Ryan knew well before he ever asked me out. Did you ever wonder why he chose us? The question hangs between us like smoke. The 2 best friends who'd never betray each other? The perfect cover story. Stop! Megan stands up so quickly her chair scrapes against the floor. You're trying to hurt me because I hurt you. I get it. I deserve it, but... Sit down. My voice doesn't waver. You haven't heard the best part yet. She sits, more from shock at my tone than obedience. Remember that summer internship Ryan helped you get at Grace's firm? The one that convinced your mother he was such a wonderful guy? I slide one more document across the table. Look at the date on that property transfer. Her hands shake as she reads. This is my mother's signature, but she would never sell her prime development property for half its value. She didn't know she did. Check the witness signatures. Megan's face crumples as she recognizes her own handwriting. I was just notarizing documents. Ryan said it was practice for my license. While I was planning our wedding, you were unknowingly helping him steal from your own mother. The truth tastes bitter on my tongue. He played us both, Megan. The only difference is, I figured it out before he could take everything. She looks up at me, really looks at me, for the first time since she sat down. What are you going to do? I stand up, gathering the documents. Wrong question. The real question is, what are we going to do? We? You have two choices. Keep playing his game and lose everything, or help me take him down. I pull out one final document, a USB drive containing everything I've discovered. Your mother's company, my savings, Laura's reputation. He's built his entire plan on the assumption that we'd never compare notes. Megan stares at the drive like it might bite her. If this gets out, everything burns. I place my hand over hers, feeling the wedding ring that matches mine. But this time we'll be the ones holding the matches. She closes her fingers around the drive, and I see a glimpse of the friend I used to know. Fierce, loyal, unstoppable when crossed. When do we start? I smile, and for the first time in weeks, it feels real. We already have. 3 empty wine bottles mock me from the kitchen counter. Not my usual poison, but tonight isn't usual. The documents from Ryan's office are spread across our dining room table, our wedding gift from Laura, like pieces of a puzzle I never wanted to solve. My phone lights up. Another message from Ryan. Please, let's talk about this rationally. Rational. Like the systematic way he built this house of lies. Like the calculated precision with which he chose his marks. The phone buzzes again. Megan this time. Grace is asking questions. We need to move faster. I switch it off, but my hands won't stop shaking. The magnitude of what we're planning finally hits me. This isn't just about exposing Ryan anymore. We're talking about destroying families, reputations, lives. The doorbell rings. For a moment, I consider ignoring it, but then I hear the key in the lock. Only one person besides Ryan has that key. Jesus, Eli. Michael steps into the dining room, taking in the chaos. When's the last time you slept? I wave vaguely at the papers. Did you know Ryan's father killed himself? Michael freezes. What? 10 years ago, right after Ryan graduated law school. I hold up the newspaper clipping I found buried in Laura's financial records. Officially, it was a hunting accident. Unofficially, I push forward a stack of bank statements. He discovered Laura and Ryan had been embezzling from his company for years. Christ. Michael sinks into a chair. Does anyone else know? Just the person who's been sending me anonymous tips. I tap the burner phone on the table. They sent me this today. Copies of William Mitchell's suicide note. He tried to stop them, Michael. He tried to expose them, and they... My voice cracks. Eli. Michael reaches for my hand, but I pull away. I'm becoming them. The words taste like ash. All these plans for revenge, for justice. I'm turning into exactly what I hate. No, you're not. Michael's voice is firm. You're protecting people. Grace's company, your future, Megan's. Am I? I stand up, pacing. Or am I just so focused on destroying Ryan that I don't care who gets caught in the crossfire? Because right now, I'm sitting here planning to expose everything at the family reunion, knowing it will devastate people who had nothing to do with this. Like who? Like Ryan's sister's kids, who'll lose their college fund when I expose Laura's financial schemes. Like Grace's employees, who might lose their jobs if the company's reputation tanks. I grab one of the wine bottles, not caring that it's empty. Like William Mitchell, who died trying to do the right thing while I'm plotting elaborate revenge scenarios like some comic book villain. Michael is quiet for a long moment. Then he stands up and takes the bottle from my hand. You want to know the difference between you and them? I look away, but he continues. You're standing here at 3 a.m, torturing yourself about the moral implications of your actions. They're sleeping peacefully, counting their money and planning their next con. That doesn't make it right. No, it doesn't. He starts gathering the papers, organizing them methodically. But it means you have a choice. You can expose everything dramatically at the reunion like you planned, or what? Or we do this the right way. Legally. Carefully. He holds up William Mitchell's suicide note. We finish what Ryan's father started, but we do it smart. We protect the innocent parties first. The burner phone buzzes. Another message from the anonymous source. Ask Laura about the offshore accounts. I stare at the message, then at the chaos spread across my dining room table. 7 years of marriage, a lifetime of friendship, generations of lies, all leading to this moment. Okay, I say finally. Show me how to do this right. Michael nods, pulling out his phone. First, we need to talk to someone who specializes in financial fraud. I know a guy. Wait, I grab his arm. Before we do this, I need to know something. Are you helping me because I'm right? Or just because I'm your sister? He meets my eyes steadily. Both. And neither. I'm helping you because someone needs to stop them, and you're strong enough to do it without becoming them. I look at the empty wine bottles, the scattered papers, the evidence of my near descent into their world of manipulation and revenge. Maybe he's right. Maybe there's a better way to burn it all down. Michael's lawyer friend keeps talking, but I'm fixated on the single sheet of paper in front of me. A list of names. Children, mostly. Beneficiaries of trusts that would collapse if we moved forward with our plan. The offshore accounts are just the beginning, James Harrison says, spreading more documents across his mahogany desk. Laura Mitchell's financial web extends through at least 3 generations of both families. How many people would be affected? My voice sounds distant, even to myself. Directly? Around 30. Indirectly? He shrugs. We're talking about dismantling a decades-long scheme. The ripple effects could impact hundreds. Michael leans forward. But we can prove the fraud. Easily. The question is whether we should. James taps the list of names. Some of these trust funds are supporting medical care, education. Stop. I stand up abruptly, moving to the window. Boston spreads out below, oblivious to the bomb we're about to detonate. There has to be another way. My phone buzzes. Megan. Grace found the missing property documents. She's calling Laura today. We're running out of time, Michael says, reading over my shoulder. If Grace confronts Laura directly, everything falls apart anyway. I turn back to James. How long would it take to secure protection for the innocent parties? Weeks, maybe months. We'd need to... The office door bursts open. Laura Mitchell stands there, immaculate as always, but her eyes are wild. I should have known you'd run to Michael. How did you... James starts. My daughter works in your building, James. Did Eleanor tell you that part? How many families she's willing to destroy for her revenge? That's rich, coming from you. Michael stands, moving between us. Laura ignores him, focusing on me. You think you're protecting people? William thought the same thing. Look where that got him. The room goes silent. Even the city noise seems to fade. What did you just say? My hands grip the back of the chair, knuckles white. Oh, didn't your anonymous friend tell you everything? Laura's smile is razor sharp. William didn't just discover our schemes. He tried to fix them. Reroute funds to protect the beneficiaries, just like you're planning. And you stopped him. The pieces click into place. The hunting accident. Was exactly that. An accident. But her eyes shift away. The point is, Eleanor, some structures can't be dismantled without destroying everything they support. You're not just fighting Ryan or me. You're fighting generations of carefully balanced arrangements. Arrangements built on lies and theft. Built on necessity. Laura moves closer. Did Ryan tell you why he married you? Your family's political connections. 3 generations of judges and prosecutors. The perfect shield. My phone buzzes again. Grace's name appears on the screen. Take the call, Laura says softly. Listen to Grace discover what her daughter's been hiding. Watch another family shatter. Or... She pulls out an envelope. We can discuss alternatives. Eli, don't. Michael starts. What alternatives? My voice is steady, but my heart hammers against my ribs. A clean break. Generous settlement. The innocent parties stay protected. Laura sets the envelope on James's desk. Everyone wins. Everyone except Justice, Michael snaps. Justice? Laura laughs. Ask Eleanor what she really wants. Justice or peace? My phone keeps buzzing. Megan's messages join Grace's calls. The list of names stares up at me from the desk. Children, families, futures. How long do I have to decide? The words taste like surrender. Until Grace finishes reading those documents. Laura moves to the door. Choose wisely, Eleanor. Unlike William, you still have a choice. She leaves, and the office feels both larger and more suffocating. You can't seriously be considering this, Michael says. I pick up the list of names, then my still buzzing phone. What if she's right? What if trying to fix this just makes everything worse? That's fear talking, not justice. Maybe. I look at James. But what if fear is trying to tell us something important? The phone buzzes one final time, then falls silent. Whatever Grace discovered, it's too late to stop it now. I pick up Laura's envelope, feeling the weight of decisions not yet made. I need to talk to Megan, I say finally, before we decide anything else. Because sometimes I'm learning, revenge isn't about who you're willing to hurt, but who you're willing to save. The Mitchell family estate looms before me, its windows glowing like warning beacons in the dusk. Cars line the circular driveway, all the players assembled for what they think is a surprise anniversary party for Laura and her second husband. Last chance to back out. Michael stands beside me, holding the briefcase containing everything, every document, every recording, every piece of evidence we've gathered. They're already inside. Megan appears at my other shoulder, her voice tight. Grace is with them. Ryan's watching the door like a hawk. I adjust my black dress. Funeral appropriate, though they don't know that yet. Did you secure the exits? James has people stationed at every door. Michael checks his watch. Once you start, no one leaves until everything's exposed. The weight of Laura's envelope presses against my ribs, tucked into my dress. Her offer of silence, of protection for the innocent, still unopened. Still a possibility. We enter through the kitchen, where caterers bustle around unaware they're serving the last supper of the Mitchell dynasty. Ryan spots me immediately, his face flickering between relief and suspicion. Eleanor? He moves toward me, champagne glass in hand. I didn't think you'd come. And Miss Laura's party? My smile feels like broken glass. Wouldn't dream of it. His eyes dart to the briefcase, to Megan, to Michael. I see the moment he realizes something's wrong, but Laura's voice cuts through the murmur of conversation. Everyone, please, gather in the main hall. The crowd shifts, carrying us with it. I catch glimpses of familiar faces. Grace, pale but composed. Laura's second husband, oblivious and beaming. Ryan's sister clutching her children's hands. The children. God, the children. Laura raises her glass. Thank you all for coming to... Actually, I step forward, my voice carrying across the sudden quiet. I'd like to say something first. Ryan moves toward me, but Michael blocks his path. Megan positions herself near Grace. Eleanor, Laura warns, think carefully about what you're doing. I pull out the envelope she gave me, still sealed. I have thought about it. For weeks, I've thought about nothing else. I turn to address the room. About justice and protection, about who deserves the truth and who deserves mercy. Eli, Ryan's voice holds real fear now. Whatever you think you know, I know everything. I open the briefcase, but I don't remove the documents. Not yet. About William's death, about the trust funds, about your 2 marriages and Laura's schemes, and every lie you've told to keep this house of cards standing. The room erupts in whispers. Grace steps forward, her face ashen. Megan? I'm sorry, Mom. Megan's voice breaks. I didn't know, not until Eleanor showed me. Showed you what? Ryan's sister demands. What's going on? I look at the children, their confused faces, their innocent futures hanging on my next words. Laura's envelope burns against my skin. The truth, I say softly, is that I came here tonight to destroy everything, to expose decades of fraud and manipulation, to get justice for everyone who's been hurt by the Mitchell family's lies. I pull out the first document, William's real suicide note. Laura goes very still. But standing here, looking at all of you, I meet Ryan's eyes. I realize there's something worse than being deceived, something worse than being betrayed. Eleanor? Michael warns, but I continue. It's becoming the very thing you're fighting against. I strike a match. When did I take it from my purse and touch it to Laura's envelope? The paper catches quickly, and I drop it into the briefcase. No! Michael lunges forward, but it's too late. The evidence burns, years of careful investigation turning to ash. With it burns my chance at justice, at revenge, at everything I thought I wanted. The fire alarm shrieks, sprinklers activate. People rush for the exits, pushing past James's guards in the chaos. Through the smoke and spray, I meet Laura's eyes. She knows what I've done, chosen mercy over justice, chosen to protect the innocent over punishing the guilty. But her triumphant smile fades as I pull out my phone and press send, because sometimes the greatest revenge isn't destruction, it's redemption. The police lights paint Laura's pristine kitchen in alternating red and blue. She sits across from me at the marble island, both of us dripping from the sprinklers, watching officers cart away boxes of evidence. The real evidence, not the decoy files I burned. Copies, I say quietly. Everything in that briefcase. Just copies. The originals went to the FBI an hour ago. Her perfectly manicured nails drum against her coffee cup. You chose this moment deliberately. The party, the family gathering. Like father, like daughter-in-law. I slide William's actual suicide note across the counter. He planned to expose everything at your anniversary party too, didn't he? Before the hunting accident. The drumming stops. Through the window, I see Ryan being led to a police car, Michael watching with grim satisfaction. You don't understand what you've done. Laura's voice trembles. Those trust funds are being protected. I pull out my phone, show her the court orders. Every innocent beneficiary has been legally separated from the fraudulent accounts. The children will keep their college funds. The medical care continues. For the first time, I see real fear in her eyes. How? I had 3 weeks after you offered me that envelope. 3 weeks where you thought you'd won. I lean forward. Did you really think I spent that time doing nothing? A commotion at the door draws our attention. Grace enters, flanked by federal agents. Her eyes lock with Laura's. You killed him, Grace says flatly. You killed William when he tried to protect my daughter from your schemes. Laura stands so quickly her chair topples. That's ridiculous. William was going to expose how you used Megan to access Grace's company records. I interrupt. How you manipulated Ryan into marrying us both to maintain your financial facade. Everything I did was for this family. No. Megan appears in the doorway, tear-stained but steady. Everything you did was for yourself, and now we all know why. I slide one final document across the counter, an old photograph. Laura goes very still. William wasn't just trying to expose the fraud, was he? I watch her face crumple. He discovered something else, about Ryan's real father, about why you needed the Carter family's connection so desperately. Mom? Ryan calls from outside. Mom, what's happening? Laura lunges for the photograph, but Grace is faster. Her gasp echoes in the suddenly silent kitchen. That's my father, with Laura. 37 years ago, I confirm. 9 months before Ryan was born. The truth hangs between us like smoke. Decades of manipulation, all to hide one desperate affair, to maintain the Mitchell family's perfect image. You destroyed everything, Laura whispers, just like William tried to. No. I stand, gathering the remaining documents. You destroyed everything the moment you chose lies over love. William tried to save us, all of us. And now, finally, he has. What do you mean? I pull out my phone one last time, show her the message chain. From an unknown number. From a dead man's scheduled emails, set to deliver years after his death. William knew he might not survive trying to expose the truth, so he left breadcrumbs, for whoever was brave enough to follow them. I meet her eyes. I wasn't your first victim, Laura, but I am your last. The officers approach to escort her out. Through the window, I see Ryan watching, understanding finally dawning on his face as Grace shows him the photograph. Was it worth it? Laura asks as they lead her away. Burning down everything to save a dead man's honor? I think of the children upstairs, their futures now secure. Of Megan and Grace, finally free from manipulation. Of William, who died trying to protect us all. Some things, I say quietly, are worth burning for. The sun rises over the Mitchell estate, painting everything in gold. In the distance, sirens fade. Beside me, Michael squeezes my shoulder. You okay? I watch Laura disappear into a police car, 30 years of secrets crumbling in her wake. No, I answer honestly. But I will be. Because sometimes the truth doesn't set you free. Sometimes it just shows you who you really are. The last box from Ryan's study sits unopened on my kitchen counter. Through the window, autumn leaves scatter across my backyard, where 3 kids once promised to be friends forever. My phone buzzes. Megan. Grace wants to meet. Both of us. The trial ended yesterday. Laura and Ryan, both guilty. The headlines called it justice. The society pages called it scandal. Neither quite captured the truth. I lift the lid from the box, expecting more evidence, more secrets. Instead, I find an old video camera. The kind we used that summer before college, when everything seemed possible. The doorbell rings. Megan stands there, looking smaller somehow, more like the girl I used to know than the woman who helped unravel everything. I found mine too, she says, holding up an identical camera. In Mom's attic. We set them both on the counter, these relics of who we used to be. Neither of us reaches to turn them on. Did you read Ryan's statement? She asks. No. I pour us both coffee. A habit from before, when friendship was simple. Did you? He said he loved us both. Her laugh sounds brittle. Actually believed it, I think. That's Ryan. I slide her cup across the counter. Living his own truth, even when it's a lie. The afternoon light catches the cameras, casting twin shadows. Megan touches one gently. We should watch them, she says. Before Grace arrives. Before we decide what happens next. She nods. We both know Grace's meeting isn't just about reconciliation. It's about the future of her company, about trust and second chances, about whether some bridges can be rebuilt after they've burned. I connect the first camera to my laptop. The screen flickers to life. There we are, young, laughing, whole. Ryan behind the camera, narrating our last summer together, before college, before choices, before we learned how love and lies could wear the same face. Stop, Megan says suddenly. Look at that moment. The frame freezes on our younger selves, sharing some forgotten joke. But it's Ryan's reflection in the window that catches my eye. The way he watches us both. Planning, even then. He didn't destroy us, I realize. He just showed us who we already were. What do you mean? You always wanted adventure. I always needed control. He just weaponized those truths. Megan's coffee goes cold, untouched. And now? The second camera sits dark, unwatched. Some truths, I'm learning, don't need to be seen to be understood. Now we choose, I say. Not between right and wrong, between easy and true. The doorbell rings again. Grace. Before Megan moves to answer, she grips my hand. I'm sorry, she whispers. Not for loving him, for forgetting how to love you first. I squeeze back, remembering Laura's final words at the trial. Love makes liars of us all. Maybe, I tell Megan, we stop trying to fix the past. Maybe we just build something new. She nods, understanding what I'm not saying. About Grace's company, about second chances, about how sometimes revenge isn't about destroying what was, but creating what could be. I open the door to Grace, noting how she carries herself now, straighter, stronger, free from decades of manipulation. The autumn wind scatters more leaves across the yard. Somewhere in a prison cell, Laura plots her appeals. In another, Ryan writes letters we'll never read. Life moves forward, messy and imperfect. I leave the cameras on the counter, untouched. Some memories don't need revisiting. Some truths are better lived than remembered. Grace spreads papers across my kitchen table, plans for rebuilding, for moving forward. Megan and I exchange glances, remembering other papers, other plans, other choices. Ready? Grace asks. I think of William, setting truth bombs to detonate years after his death. Of Laura, building walls to protect secrets that were never worth keeping. Of Ryan, loving so desperately he forgot how to love honestly. Yes, I say and mean it. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even, it's about getting free.